All right, we're back for another episode of the Tacho Show, and we have a very awesome Grand Hero Battle unit to take a look at today. So we've got Glen over here, long-awaited character from Sacred Stones. One of the coolest, post-game characters that you can unlock. For me, my favorite was always Ismare, but, Glen is probably my second favorite out of all of those guys. So, really awesome character here. He's got some really good artwork as well. Penico R, of course, always holding it down pretty good. So, why don't we go ahead and take a look at some stats here for this guy. So, he's got 43 HP. He's got 45 attack. He's got 34 speed. He's got 47 defense, and then he's got 20 res. So, res is pretty bad. His speed is okay. His speed actually can work out pretty decently, considering you can give him something like Wyvern Rift and stack up, frozen effects to increase the speed cap needed for your opponents to actually double him. And then his attack and defense are his highest stats. Overall BST is 188 to 190, which will put him in the same scoring bin as Arion pretty much. He has a really good perf weapon as well. So Sunstone's Blade, 16 might, grants a flat defense up 3, which is very good. And then it also supports all allies that are in 3 rows and 3 columns centered on him by attack and defense up 4, and then 10 HP recovery post-combat. So a really nice support effect there. They've been doing this to all of the Wyvern, free-to-play units. They just tack on this wide radius support effect on all of them, like Ashnard, for example. It's really good when they do that, though, so we'll definitely take it. Then also, if he initiates combat, or if there is an ally in 3 rows or 3 columns centered on him, then he gets all stats of 5. He does a penalty to the enemy's attack and defense equal to 20% of his defense at the start of combat. And then he also reduces damage from the foe's first attacks by 15% of his defense. That'll be during combat. And then he also makes a guaranteed follow-up, and post-combat he gets back 10 HP recovery. So, a pretty solid weapon. This is definitely the type of weapon you want to give to a free-to-play unit. It's got some solid in-combat potential, and then it also has a ton of support. So, this is what we want to see. This is exactly how you do it. Okay, then for his special, he comes with Ignis, which is pretty effective on him. 80% bonus damage based on defense when... this is the type of unit that you want to be stacking defense on. This could do a lot of damage, so it's pretty good. He also has Wyvern Flight 3, which is the prerequisite for Wyvern Rift. So Insys actually, for once, they were like, hey, we got you guys. You want to give him Wyvern Rift? Well, we'll make it easy on you. We'll give you the prerequisite right out the gates. And even if you can't get Wyvern Rift, this is still a pretty solid Tier 3 skill, right? Wyvern Flight. Let's see here. If your speed is better than the foe's speed minus 10, then you do a penalty on the enemy's attack and defense equal to half of the difference between defense stats with a max penalty of minus 7. Okay, maybe not that crazy. Just possible minus 7 to enemy attack and defense. But it's still, for a free-to-play skill, it's still pretty good. And then Flyer Guidance 3, again, a really nice prerequisite skill for soaring guidance there. And it also eases up on the need for Travant copies, because up until this point, he was the only other, Grand Hero Battle and Tempest Trial character that had that. So, definitely some good stuff here. They did a great job on Glen. So, now let's go ahead and take a look at his stat line, and we'll compare him to his contemporaries. Of course, the obvious one is going to be Ashnard, the other sword flyer of choice. Now, I am including Dragon Flowers on all of these characters we're going to look at, and the reason why is because Ashnard pretty much... this dude has 25 flowers, so you can't really take him at face value without the flowers included. So, in terms of stats, we've got 44 HP from Glen, and then 48 from Ashnard, so Ashnard wins a little in HP. Then Glen's got 46 attack, while Ashnard has 42. Glen's got 35 defense, while Ashnard has 26. So a pretty major difference there if you're including Wyvern Rift into the picture. You could really change the speed priority necessary for enemies to double this guy pretty hardcore. So his speed is not a throwaway, even though it's not the craziest. It's actually in a good enough range, I would say. Alright, then Ashnard's got 40 defense, and then Glen's got 48. So far, Glen has been kicking his ass. But then we get to res, and this is where Ashnard really starts to shine. So he's got 36 res, while Glen only has 21. So you want to keep this guy as far away from magic as possible. Definitely the idea would be to support him with some kind of far-saving armor type unit, like maybe Valentine Myrrh or Duo Byleth or even the new Amelia who just came out. Like, those are going to be your far save options to keep this guy away from magic, and you really just want him to be fighting melee opponents that are dealing physical damage so he can take advantage of his good defense, and that's pretty much all there is to say about him in terms of stat comparison with Ashnard. We also have Arion here as another possible contemporary of him, even though Arion is a lance-type unit, and he functions a little bit differently where he's giving party-wide charge to all of your flying-type units. That's not really the playstyle Glen is going for. He's more so similar to, like, Ashnard, where he can be a really nice in-combat unit, and then he's also giving crazy amounts of support. So there are the stats for Arion right there. I would say, overall, Glen compares pretty favorably to him. They have a tie on attack, and then very similar defense there. Very similar res and speed as well. So they're not, like, too different. They have very minute differences between them. And then we have also this Har here, this Ninja Har. Got a very similar stat line to everybody as well. He's got a little bit more res than Glen. He's got 30. Not as much as Ashnard, but certainly more than Arion and also Glen. And then defense and attack are the focal points, and then his speed is pretty bad. Probably, like, Glen, out of all of these guys, Glen and Arion are definitely the ones making the best use of Wyvern Rift. So keep that in mind when you're deciding which one of these guys you want to go for, if you're planning to plus 10 any of them. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at his scoring. So he scores in the same bin as Arion, so we can use Arion as our proxy for this. So we score tie with Cyril. Now, Cyril is a ranged unit, which is a little bit better for arena mode, but in that same regard, having a flying unit with access to stuff like Soaring Echo, Soaring Guidance, Guidance 4 is also very helpful for arena mode. So I wouldn't give Cyril the edge just because he's a ranged player phaser. I would say actually the mobility support can come in even more handy depending on the situation. All right, then we have Fallen Lloyd, who is the new, like, arena GOAT. Really nice free-to-play unit. He does a lot of debuffs, so he can be very effective in there, and he scores a little bit higher than Arion and Glen will. Now, Glen also has the weapon support where he's doing attack and defense -4 and healing to allies in 3 rows and 3 columns centered on him when they're in combat. So that could compare pretty favorably to Lloyd's also. He does a debuff of speed and defense -7 to the enemies, which chains, and then he also gives allies foe penalty doubler as a support effect. So that could be pretty good too. And then, of course, Kana as well. Kana, dude, Kana, I didn't even realize this, but High Dragon Wall scores 400 SP. I just found that out today. I was like, what the hell? Why is Kana all of a sudden scoring as high as Lloyd? And then I found out. I was like, wow. Yeah, so this Kana, I mean, from 7 months ago, she released 7 months ago. She just keeps on getting better and better, right? So Kana, definitely another good unit to build up for arena scoring. She scores higher than Arion and also Glen will, but like I said before, all of these units have their own unique capabilities for arena mode. Like, the Flyers have access to mobility skills, and then Kana and Lloyd have access to a lot of debuffing effects, and Kana herself has High Dragon Wall for Warp Bubble, and then Cyril is a nice player phaser. So go ahead and build whichever one of these guys you think is going to serve you the best. They all, I would say, are pretty worthy for arena mode, and scoring is not too different, even though Lloyd and Kana score just slightly higher. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at the builds, right? This is what you guys are all here for. So I've got 3 builds here for our boy Glen. This is going to be the first one. So, of course, his weapon wants him to have a visible defense stat that's really high, so he can do the maximum debuff to the enemy's attack and defense at the start of combat. So for this instance, Solid Ground and Squad Ace BT3 are going to be our bread and butter. Solid Ground gives him the visible defense and attack, and it does tank his res a little bit, but that's not going to be the biggest deal in the world, because, like I said earlier, the way you want to play this guy is to protect him with a far save armor, so he can just man the front lines down and deal with all of the melee threats, while your armored unit is dealing with all of the magical threats. We got Wyvern Rift, of course. That seems to be the best option for his B skill, because it's going to give him the frozen effect for the enemy's speed, where they need a lot more speed to double him. We've got Rain Snap and Soaring Echo here, so a lot of mobility support, giving +1 movement to infantry and armor type allies, and then also giving warping to infantry and flying type allies. Very strong stuff there. So combine that with his weapon already doing support, it just turns out pretty well. And then we've got No Quarter as the special. I don't think I can put the rings on yet because I'm doing the custom builder for the unit builder here because they don't actually have the update in yet with all of the new Sacred Stones unit and Glen himself. So forgive the guerrilla warfare here with these tactics that we gotta like do it like this. But as far as which emblem ring is concerned, you'd probably want to go for Marth ring on this guy because his weapon actually does not have -1 special trigger. So Marth ring would be good, or even Celica ring I think could work out pretty well, so he can warp in pretty far. And then the further he warps in, the better, because then he can be a further, like, deeper into the enemy line Soaring Echo beacon. So all that stuff is pretty good. I would advise against the Ike ring, actually, on this guy, because, again, like I said, you don't really want him to be tanking attacks from range-type enemies. So Ike ring giving you the non-pierceable DR against range is... I mean, it's not bad. Like, we're going to take a look at a build that actually would use the Ike ring, but for right now, on this type of build, you wouldn't want to. Okay, next up, we have a DPS build here. This one's like a combo DPS and also defensive build. So even Attack Wave N is actually a pretty good skill on this guy. Again, it's offering a lot of support where you can give attack up 6 to Glen as well as allies in 2 spaces of him. And then also, when you deal damage to a foe in combat, you're getting back 5 HP recovery per hit landed. So combo's really good with his healing on his weapon already. And then, of course, it also gives you a drive attack up 6 if it's an even number turn. So lots of power getting added from Attack Wave N. Then Gambit 4, of course, with Miracle and non-1 special trigger weapon is giving us 15 points of true damage on every attack, as well as 50% DR on every attack. That is pierceable, but still pretty good. Earth Fire Boost giving us +5 HP and guard, and then attack and defense up 7. Combo's really good with Squad Ace BT3, which is giving us another HP up 5, and then raw attack and defense up 3. So pretty good there. And Soaring Echo is pretty much the Echo skill of choice on all of these flyer type units. So there you go for this build here. Miracle is my choice over Aether. You could go for Aether if you want, because it's going to do more damage and give you more healing, but I don't know. I feel like Miracle might be a little bit more clutch in the long haul, so I decided to go for that. And then as far as which emblem ring you want to go for, definitely Celica ring on this build, I would say. And the final build we've got for Glen is more of like an Omni-Tank style of build, quote-unquote Omni-Tank. This is not the type of unit you would want to Omni-Tank with, but just in the event that you want him to be like a distant counter unit, this is what you would go for. So attack and defense prime 4, not too difficult to get a lot of start of turn bonuses on him, so there you go there. You could also force it a little bit more if you wanted to run like attack Oath Echo and then like Rain Snap to give him warping and +1 movement. That would be 2 effects right there. But I'm going for like optimization of skills here as opposed to like upkeep on prime 4. Wyvern Rift once again because I think it's overall his best B skill. We got Breath of Life 4 this time around, which is actually pretty good on him because his weapon already gives the healing support of 10 HP. So you combine that with the start of turn healing with Breath of Life 4, and then it just leads to a lot of support and a lot of healing for your allies, as well as Glen himself. So there we go there. We got Pavis on this build, so this is an instance where you could choose between Ike Ring or also Marth Ring, depending on what the situation is. It depends on what other sort of supports you have on the team as well. Like, maybe if you've got Embla support, the Bride Embla to like support him and then give him a lot of cooldown reduction, then you could go for the Ike Ring instead of Marth Ring. But if you want him to be a little more self-sufficient, then I would say the Marth Ring would be better. And then we have Guard Echo here for the Echo skill, mainly because he doesn't have Guard anywhere else on this build, so for a tanking type of unit, Guard is pretty important, but you could still go for Soaring Echo as well. I mean, that's not like the biggest deal in the world. Just choose whichever you like more. So there we go for some builds on Glen, and then there were 2 skills I also wanted to highlight here for this unit in particular. So one of them is Mystic Boost 4. It may not seem like the biggest deal in the world, but having the ability to turn off enemies' adaptive damage could be very clutch for this guy, because, like we said before, his res is not the greatest, so you want the enemies to focus primarily on targeting his defense, and we literally just got a really good Hexblade support unit in Nidavellir, so having some protection against that I think would be good. So Mystic Boost 4 could find its way on any of these builds if you want to go for it. Also, the added healing combos nicely with his weapon. And then the other skill would be Speed and Defense Crux. if you want to add more support on this guy. It does 3 column and 3 row enemy debuffs of speed and defense -4, then guaranteed follow-ups for all your allies in that same radius. So pretty good support C skill if you want to go for that, but I went more for the like actual movement support with Rain Snap, or like attack support or healing support there with Breath of Life 4. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. This has been our breakdown of GHB Glen. Pretty awesome unit. Definitely a worthwhile unit to invest in, and a very nice fan favorite as well. So there you guys go. This is your boy Tacho signing out. So take care, fellas, and I'll catch y'all again on the flip side.